In November 2023, I went on a study tour of Hanoi, led by the local architectural research team Hanoi Ad Hoc. Our focus? Exploring if techniques like photogrammetry could contribute new understandings of cultural heritage. This is my personal reflection on that journey. Here is Trung, one of the leading architects, discussing our project.
The modification doesn't stand alone. It had to be situated in a context, a political and economical context.
Yeah.
So I think if you have an exercise that like imagine the future, I think you should align it with a kind of a scenario.
Yeah.
We're standing inside a kutapte, or KTT, built over 60 years ago but continually adapted over time. This Gaussian splat reveals a homely interior. Our host notes that the walls consist of many layers: wood, reinforced concrete, and tiles. Over time, additional materials were added, but even she was unsure of all the specifics. Here she is, speaking on the origins of this building.
Hầu như tất cả các bộ là đều cho làm xây dựng cái nhà này để cho cán bộ công nhân viên chức ở.
As I understand, when the newly formed government after the war, we have to have the ministry for that, and all of that were newly formed. You can never feel the Ministry of Construction, the Ministry of Finance, and things like that. And they have to be accredited for the officials, the officials working in the ministry at the time.
So it's kind of a high profile.
Họ xây dựng toàn bằng nhà gỗ. Ở ngoài này là có 17 nhà gỗ. 17 cái nhà gỗ thì hoàn toàn là cán bộ công nhân viên chức từ.
Here are Gaussian splats alongside the conventional photogrammetry method, showcasing the leading 3D capture techniques available at the time. There are multiple web-based platforms that provide free processing of images into these 3D formats. These are communal areas of the KTT. Originally home to 17 government worker families, the layout embodied the new communist era's ideologies after the Indochina Wars. Communal areas, shared kitchens, and bathrooms. These homes were only meant as temporary structures for the establishing government. They are still predominantly made from wood and bamboo, and are considered hazardous by the government and media in Hanoi. Some additional research after the trip brought several news articles relating to this specific KTT to my attention. Stories focusing on the dangers of the structural integrity. I found that the government has marked this building as dangerous, and there are plans in place to dismantle it. However, this is slow moving, as there are 400 households across 8 similar buildings waiting to be relocated. This is as reported by VTV, a news broadcaster in Vietnam. It is expected that by 2028, One Kiem district will complete the relocation work, and these housing areas will be redeveloped, meaning this KTT housing, a symbol of Hanoi's revolutionary rebirth and Ho Chi Minh's nation-building ideals, is in danger of being lost to time. In my attempts to preserve the space more accurately and precisely using the available data set, I began exploring new workflows, and through this created my sculptural reflection. Found objects from my trip, heritage and history reflected in each. Stairs, a window, a tile. I began using Photoshop and a variety of open source programs to create higher quality PBR textures and cleaner geometry through retopology. Lamenting on the contextual history of the materials, dust, scratches, imperfections, I decided to strip away all other context. For me, it's sad to see such rich history floating in the digital. Much work needs to be done to more responsibly capture these spaces, represent them, tie them to history and physical space. We exist within the context of all that has come before us. Once digitized, how do we tie digital objects to the context and history? How do we ground them? This piece is my reflection on the heritage that can be captured and the large gaps in digital preservation today. On the study tour, we visited the GLM train factory originally founded in 1905 during the French colonial rule. After the Geneva Accord was signed in 1954, the French intended to move all the machines to the south. However, the factory workers seized them and refused to cooperate. The factory continued operation by the Revolution and strengthened the nation, and so the same for many other factories across Hanoi. This exhibition highlights Hanoi Ad Hoc's research into the history of these factories and their stories through time. I am including this exhibition as an archive, as this factory's future may lay along the same path as the KTT. To quote Ad Hoc practice, currently being scheduled to relocate away from its current site, the factory's future and historical legacy are uncertain and at risk of being eroded under the pressure of urban development. In the context of this project, The Grid, where the central theme revolves around the concept of experimentation in repurposing the factory, we find ourselves immersed in a larger narrative of transient urbanism.